Today I'm going to teach you how to play the Caro Kann Defense like a 2000 plus rated player. My name is Alex. I'm a 2000 rated over the board chess player and a 2300 online blitz chess player. And in this series we're going from 1500 to 2000 elo in chess.com rapid games, where I'll be explaining my thought process as best as I can for your education and entertainment. If you're wondering, Alex, why has your elo gone up so much since the last episode? If you follow the Patreon, you will know, because I'm going to be uploading the videos to the Patreon. But I had 3 games abandoned before this game. One game my opponent abandoned after 7 moves, even though the position was, I don't know, slightly better for me. In the second game, my opponent abandoned without even making a move. And in the third game, I played the same opponent who abandoned without playing a single move. And then he just threw the game away immediately for no reason and then resigned. So I don't know what's happening with chess.com right now, but my opponent goes for an Alien Gambit. I've actually had a lot of requests on the channel for like a video on how to counter the Alien Gambit in the comment section. I have a video on my channel about how to refute the Alien Gambit, and I'm going to hope that I remember the lines that I laid out there, starting with bishop to f5. I'm not going to play h6 and invite the Alien Gambit. I'm basically going to do everything but knight 1 to f3. Normally bishop c4 is played, so there's a few intricacies to this, because what I don't want to do is allow this knight to come to e5. So normally against bishop c4 in this position, if I remember my prep correctly, which by the way is on that YouTube video on my channel, you go pawn to e6 because of the attack on f7, of course. But if the knight comes to f3, you have to stop knight to e5. So I believe you play knight b to d7 first. And then if bishop c4, we'll go e6, blocking this diagonal. We basically want to get to a position where we kind of keep white's pieces at bay, and then we go h6, which most of the time will send the knight back to the h3 square, and we will have the option to ruin white's pawn structure, but we also don't have to. I feel like this offers way more flexibility for black. And yeah, I mean, he goes back immediately, which, if someone's playing the Alien Gambit, I just don't think this is the kind of position that they want to be playing. And I don't really see a reason not to take this, because I haven't even had to provoke him to move. He's just done it voluntarily, which is fantastic. So this is just a really nice position. Queen a5 looks interesting. Queen a5 check, let's say pawn c3 or bishop d2, doesn't really matter. Something like queen h5, putting pressure here and putting pressure on h3, looks interesting. We could also consider knight b6 with tempo on the bishop, but I feel like it's important for us to control this e5 square. I think I'm going to go bishop d6, just developing the bishop to its natural square. Just applying pressure on this diagonal, stopping any bishop to f4 ideas. Of course, white can try and go after the g7 pawn. I think I can probably just play a move like rook g8 or even a move like g6. And instead of castling kingside, I can probably just castle queenside to make the potential pressure on the g file kind of irrelevant. And this should mean that most endgames are probably in our favor, because the white pawn structure is clearly far worse than ours, and this h2 pawn is most likely going to be a liability. So he does go for g1. Castling makes no sense, I don't think, because of bishop h6 going after g7. If we push, then we lose the exchange. So if castles bishop h6, we probably have to play knight to e8 defending, and that's just very passive. So I don't really want to have to play that. So I'm going to go pawn g6. I'm expecting a move like bishop h6 or bishop to g5, trying to apply pressure to the newly weakened dark squares. Okay, or queen to e2. Setting up some potential sacrifices on e6, which you do have to be very aware of in the Alien Gambit type positions, even when the gambit isn't played. But I think we can just play knight to d5, blocking this diagonal. And if take, that's perfectly fine. We do, however, have to be aware our e-pawn is pinned, so we can't take with the e-pawn. But this looks very good to me, because we traded off our light squared bishop, right? And we have basically all our pawns on light squares, which should mean that we're doing very well and we're complementing our dark squared bishop very well. So, okay, bishop to g5. Of course, f6 is a terrible move. Knight to f6 makes no sense. Bishop to e7 makes no sense to me because I don't really want to trade the bishops. I see no reason. So queen b6 looks like the most natural move. Queen a5, there's just c3, and then why is our queen on a5? There's something to be said for queen c7 maybe, but I think queen b6 looks more natural. I expect white to castle queenside, and unfortunately we can't castle queenside just yet because the bishop is intercepting, but we could potentially play a move like h6 to try and get the bishop to move away. Or we could play a move like rook c8. I suppose we could have kept the b6 square free for our knight so that it can come into c4. That might have been something to consider. We can go for rook c8, of course. We can even consider castling kingside and playing something like h5 to stop the advancement of this pawn. Also viable. What else can we do? What else can we do? Well, I think our knight is good on d7, though, because it's stopping any bishop f6 and also stopping any knight to e5 ideas, which is probably a good use of the knight. So, I don't know, maybe we should be okay with castling kingside, but delaying it for the time being. I think my issue with rook c8 is it just doesn't look like it does anything. We could consider queen to a5 with tempo on a2, so let's say king b1, knight b6. Trying to get into the dark squares, as in like knight c4 and the dark squares on like b2 and a3 is interesting. Even like something like queen b4 and bringing the knight in, but I suppose we're inviting the move c3 with tempo, which maybe we shouldn't be doing. We could also just throw the a pawn up the board, which also looks very tempting. And again, we can castle whenever we want. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I like that. Let's go a5. And yeah, this is definitely not a boring position whatsoever. Rook d3. Okay. Interesting. But what about pawn a4? Stopping rook b3. I assume you want to go rook to e3. But I think I can just castle in that position. Because obviously, it looks like white would be trying to set up sacrifices on the e6 square. And I mean, even if we castle, he could maybe go for sacrifices on e6. However, I think if rook e3 castles, rook e6, fe6, queen e6, we probably have rook to f7, blocking the diagonal and defending the knight. And we also have threats of bishop to f4 check, picking up the queen. So he goes pawn to h4, trying to go pawn to h5, which makes sense. We could consider the move a3 straight away. If rook b6 take, and then rook here, bishop here wins the game. So here weakens the dark squares, which is nice. No immediate win, but definitely weakening. We probably have to play h5 to stop the pawn advancing. H6 is also reasonable. And then playing h5. I suppose the bishop doesn't have many good squares to go to. And because we're not castled yet, he can't really justify a sacrifice because we always have the option to castle queenside if we really want to. So I think we should start with h6. And then the bishop has to go to e3 or d2, both of which are quite passive squares. And then we can play h5. So we're going to achieve the same goal of playing pawn to h5, but we also get to kick the bishop away as like a little extra bonus, I think, anyway. And then also by playing h5, we're locking this pawn here. h2 and h4 are going to be very vulnerable, and there's no good way for them to trade themselves off. Because we're just stopping their advancement on the h-file, which again should mean that endgames favor us because of the weakness of the h-pawns. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. And it's also good to like get an actual game of chess because, like I said, the previous 3 games that I tried to record just did not go to plan whatsoever. So I don't know. Chess.com's on a mad one right now. Not really sure what my opponent's thinking about because h5 makes no sense. Just take. I don't know. I mean, I suppose I can't take because of queen e6, but I don't know if you can justify that. Because I just have the option to castle queenside. I also have ideas of bishop to f4 check. I also have ideas of pawn to a3. It just seems like it doesn't work. Let's say h5, maybe a3, b6, sorry, b3, take, check, here, castle queenside, something along those lines. Take, and then e6 is defended, right? So yeah, he drops his bishop back. We could throw in the move a3, but I think I'm just going to go h5, because if my opponent goes a3, which he might do, then we're kind of setting ourselves up for b5, b4, I think. Okay. So again, he's trying to set up sacrifices on e6, which, like I said, is something you always have to watch out for. He is, however, hanging the h2 pawn in many lines, which, again, I'm struggling to see what his justification for is, because it means my queen now defends e6. So if, like, take, you can't sack. So let's say you go here. As long as I go, like, bishop c7 and not bishop d6 blocking my queen's defense, then you just have no threat, and I'm up a clean pawn. We can also throw in the move a3. If knight takes e6, well, no, then we just take with the queen here, here, here. Maybe that's defendable. Maybe that's defendable. So I think we should probably just nab the pawn. I don't really see a reason not to. Like I said, e6 is well defended by the queen. And at the end of the day, even if we don't get to play pawn to a3, now we are up a pawn, so it's not a big deal anyway. We can just start looking to trade. Okay, that also doesn't really threaten anything. Because, again, if knight takes, queen takes... Oh, maybe there's a move like queen to, I don't know, f3, and then my queen's pinned to my king. That's interesting. Okay, maybe there is a threat. So, I don't really want to play a move like knight f8 defending. That's very sad. It might be time to just castle. It might be time to castle. And just get out of there. I think so. I think so. It does look risky to castle kingside, I am well aware, with all the pressure that my opponent is trying to exert on my position. But I also just don't think he has enough. I just don't see it. I mean, some of his pieces just aren't very impressive. And we have a decent amount of counterplay with a3. Our bishop seems okay. Oh, wait, is f4 a problem? Is f4 a problem? What? What kind of a move is that? Okay, let's think. Well, regardless of what we take with, he can't take on e6 because I'll trade the queens with him and then I'll just be up a piece. So I don't think it's even necessary to take with a king. That just invites checks anyway. Or rook f3. So let's say rook f7. Now you can't even play pawn to f4 because my bishop takes on f4. Because my rook is now guarding that square. I'm not seeing it. I'm really not seeing it. This feels incredibly desperate. I'm not sure if I'm missing something, but I'm just not seeing it. And this is what I was saying earlier, by the way. With declining the gambit, making my opponent go back, we're getting my opponent into a type of game that he doesn't necessarily want to play. If he's playing the Alien Gambit, he wants to sacrifice a piece and just attack, 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 right? That'll be the mindset behind wanting to play the Alien Gambit. Being forced into an actual, like, maneuvering game of chess isn't necessarily what they want. And you can see my opponent still is trying to like belligerently attack me, even in a position that doesn't necessarily warrant it. Like I said, I think f4 was probably the way to go here. Although I suppose I probably have bishop to g3 attacking the rook and h4. So let's say rook h1, I'm probably okay. Yeah, but this just can't work. What are you doing about bishop f4? Which forces a trade. Which of course benefits me. Your rook is now staring at nothing. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing any threat. I'm just going to go something like this, and I'm going to be fine. I'm just going to be up a full piece. Because remember, I won a pawn on h2 and he won a pawn on f7 for the piece. So I'm just up a clean piece. And I'm going to trade more pieces. This is perfectly safe. I can even play a move like knight to f8 to defend e6 and g6, which I'm kind of leaning more towards. Even though it's kind of passive. Maybe I'm allowing queen to e5, but then I don't know, like rook f5? The queen has no infiltrations. Knight to f8 just looks completely, like, solid. Knight to f8 never mate is, of course, the saying. And to break through the position, he's going to have to sacrifice. Although I suppose I am giving him this. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But then again, what can I do? Maybe king h7 was better. Okay, let's think. Let's not be lazy. That was a bit lazy. Does this carry a threat? Well, it potentially carries threats of sacrificing and doing some kind of perpetual. So I've got to be a little bit careful. King g7 makes sense. Just defending the pawn. Right, that makes sense. Let's say rook to g3. Applying more pressure. Maybe rook back to f6 defending. We could also consider pawn to a3, but the problem is he's just queen h6. Yeah, if I try to escape, he's going to win this. So I've got to be careful. I think king g7. If check here, pawn h5 is very annoying. Very annoying. Maybe queen to d6, guarding the rook. So let's say queen d6, rook g6, knight g6, queen g6, king to f8. Then my rook is protected. Something like check here, I'm probably okay. I definitely have given my opponent a bit too much there, though. E5 looks bad. Yeah, that's got to be bad. Okay, knight to f8 I think was a lazy move from me. I think king to h7 was probably the move that I should have played, stopping the queen infiltrations. Knight to f8 just looked incredibly solid, but I just completely missed the fact that this rook was pinning the pawn. There's no good way to distract this rook to stop it from pinning the pawn either. So, okay. Let me think. What about rook f5? Just hitting the queen and trying to defend the h5 square. If rook f5, rook g6, knight g6, queen g6, king f8, I should be okay. I should be escaping. And if rook f5, queen h6, trying to play pawn to h5, that's difficult to stop. That is difficult to stop. Okay, so queen h6 is also a problem, which is again leading me to king g7, but still queen e5, rook f6, and pawn h5. But maybe pawn h5 isn't the end of the world. Even though it looks like it. It certainly does look like it. How should I do this? Maybe here, I can go here. Oh no, then the rook hangs. No, the rook just hangs. Maybe queen c7. Guarding the rook, guarding e5. And if take, I have queen to g7. If queen c7, queen h6, the rook is under attack. It is defended by my queen. h5 is on the way. Maybe I have rook takes f2 with a checkmate threat. And if rook c3, then queen to h7, and I'm not hanging the rooks, it's on f2. I think that's the way to go. Not happy, though. That was really lazy from me to play knight to f8. I thought that there was just no threat, but I just completely overlooked the fact that h5 was actually hanging. Now, what do we do against rook to g3? It's a very annoying move to face. I have to be very careful. I think my initial idea was queen to h7 against rook g3. But if rook g3, queen h7, rook g6, knight to g6, queen to g6, king to h8, there's rook to h6, pinning my queen to my king. So that's no good. So what about rook f6? Rook f6, rook g6, rook g6, rook g6, knight g6, queen g6, queen g7, queen e6, queen h8, I'm fine. So probably rook back, right? Taking here is suicidal. I'm just losing. So I'm going to have to come back. That seems pretty obvious. If queen to h6 trying to play pawn to h5, then I can bring my queen over somewhere to force the queen to evacuate the position, which is what I want. Now, if queen to g5 with tempo on the rook and preparing pawn h5, then I have queen to f4 check, forcing a queen trade, which I assume is why my opponent has moved his king. But now... still not easy. Still not easy. Maybe I should start with queen c8. Sorry, rook c8, threatening checkmate. But I suppose it's just pawn c3, and it's like... come on, am I just wasting my time? Something to be said for king g7. Although... well, yeah, if queen g5, I can go for this. I'm not threatening anything, though, but you can't take because I have too many defenders. Thing is, if the queen goes to g5, threatening h5, I need a way to offer a queen trade, I think. Although, if queen h7, queen g5, maybe just rook f5. And of course, you can't sack your queen. So, like, queen e3. And then maybe I can take or play queen h5 myself. I think that looks very reasonable. I just need to stop the pawn coming to h5, and then I should be okay. Queen g5, rook f5. There's no queen e7, because my queen defends that square. So, let's say queen g4. Well, then still queen to h5. Okay, queen h4 immediately. That makes more sense. Still rook f5, though. And you can't go h5 because a queen takes. And if take, I can take. And of course, you can't sack the rook when you've traded the queen. So, rook f5 looks very strong. Also just blocks any threat on e6. I could go king h8 as well. Just stepping off of the g-file. But if h5, I can't take with the queen because with rook h3. So I should just not let the h-pawn advance. Although I suppose if rook f5, h5, and queen takes, there's still rook h3. No, sorry, there isn't, because my queen is on g8. So if here, 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 I just take. So yeah, let's go rook f5. This is just not easy, is it? People who play the Alien Gambit are just really good at playing a piece down, I suppose. Which I guess shouldn't be a surprise. Shouldn't be a surprise. It is also weird on chess.com at the moment, the amount of people who have like joined like 1 day ago. It's a lot of people. And I mean, my opponent clearly isn't cheating or anything, so I'm not suspicious of him in any way. It's just strange. Okay, pawn a3. Well, queen h5 seems like a no-brainer, stopping the advancement. And like I said, you can't trade. That's terrible. So where does the queen go? Well, let's say queen... Wait, no, queen h3 is the only way to avoid a trade. That's the only move to avoid a trade. Which is just a very sad square. Yeah. Okay. Now maybe king to h7. Seems reasonable. I could take on f2, but I see no need. I'm just going to get my king off of the g file. Now the h4 can't be played to open up the h file via a pawn sacrifice, I'm happy to have my king on the h file. And again, my knight is actually doing a very good job at the moment. Even though previously it was definitely not the move, it is very strong now. So we're up a knight for a pawn. My king is not the safest. Okay, yeah, f4 doesn't really do anything. Why can't I take this? e6 isn't threatened. Why can't I take? Is this just a desperate move? Something like rook f1, maybe? Trying to invade on the f file. So maybe I shouldn't accept it. Just because there's no reason to. Maybe it's better for me to bring my rook into the game. G5, rook g5, rook g5. Ah, yeah, trying to force h5. So if I take, maybe the idea is rook g5, but then I can take, and I should be okay. Let's say queen e3. I don't think there's a threat. Although, yeah, I don't know, it looks uncomfortable. Looks uncomfortable, but maybe I can just go king g7. An interesting move. I think I should take it. I think it's the principled approach. Rook g5. Should I play this? I think so. Queen g2, preparing rook h1. Also, preparing sacrifices on g6 is scary. Yeah, this is not simple. What? I don't understand, to be honest. Okay. Sure. I have queen f5, queen f2, or queen h1. Okay, what about rook h4 though? I think this makes sense. Queen f1 I'm expecting. But can I just do this? Queen f5, offering a queen trade and stopping any queen to f7 ideas. I'll probably put my king back on g7. Oh, that's a move I didn't really consider. Okay. So he's going to get to f2. Maybe I should take rook f2. Or maybe I should stick around with queen h5 to defend h6. I think that makes more sense. I'm just losing my knight though. Oh, okay, he doesn't want the knight. Why wouldn't you take the knight? I don't know. Oh, queen f6, that's a good move. Oh no. I think I'm just lost. I'm just getting mated. He's just going to take this, right? Once he takes the knight, I just lose. Oh my god. Yeah, that's game over. Rook takes. Rook takes, queen takes, king h8. I don't know. I can try and survive that, but it's just game over completely. Wait, maybe I had... No, I don't... Did I blunder? Could I have gone queen h7? Well, no, he just takes with check, though, and then he wins the rook, so no. Yeah, and this is just completely losing. I can't even do that, because he'll win my rook. I've got to try and get a perpetual. Yeah, but that blunders the rook as well. Let's do this. I need to get my rooks to the second rank, really, to try and mount some kind of perpetual on the white king. I think I just lose. Yeah, I just lose because there's queen e7 no matter what I do, and I lose this. Oh my god. Yeah, that's just game over. What? Oh my god, how did I throw that? I have no idea. Let's jump into the analysis and see where that went wrong, because the opening seemed very good. Okay, so let's see. 90.5% accuracy for my opponent, 81.2 for us. That was such a strange game. So we have this Alien Gambit with knight g5. And most people say just play h6 and accept the gambit, and black is completely winning. And like, that is true, but I just find those positions so uncomfortable to play. So I prefer this line, which I recommended in my refuting the Alien Gambit video. Bishop c4, e6. Knight h3 was very strange. I didn't really see a reason for him to retreat the knight, so I took bishop b6, rook g1, g6. This is all very good. Knight d5, bishop g5. The computer actually does like this check. I didn't see what we were doing after c3, though. The computer says castles, which is just, it feels so unnatural. I suppose the point is white can't castle queenside because a2 hangs, but queen b6, castles, a5, rook d3, a4, h4, h6. This is all reasonable. Bishop h2 is a mistake. Okay. But because of queen f3, so of course I can't take because of this. So let's say castles. Then rook g2, let's say bishop back. Then I'm getting hit with this again. And I'm just losing. Because if, let's say king, well, rook takes, king f8, bishop h6, king e8, rook g8, yeah, that's just falling apart. Completely falling apart. And yeah, okay. But rook e1, castling was a blunder. Yeah, and the reason is because of f4, which is what I was expecting, which blocks the bishop's retreat and attacks the bishop. So I thought after bishop g3, oh no, I hang the bishop. Okay, I completely missed that. So yeah, I would have just been losing. But my opponent missed it and he took. And I mean, black is so much worse. Sorry, white is so much worse here. I definitely shouldn't have played knight to f8 though. In retrospect, I thought king h7 was much better, which it is, because now you unpin the g-pawn. Knight f8, queen h5, queen c7 is the best move. Okay, glad to see that. My other consideration was a move like rook f6. I think I rejected this on the basis of queen to g5. Here the computer just wants to take, and if h5, a3, it just doesn't care, which is such an inhuman way to play this position. Oh, because it sees that this always threatens to trade. Right, so obviously if takes, oh no, and we're threatening mate. Ah, so we're forcing a trade. Although it wants this, queen e3, and then rook h5. Okay then. Well, I went queen c7, which is also good. Rook dg3, rook f6 is best. King b1, rook queen h7. These are all the best moves. We're doing very well. Rook f4 is good. Rook h4 is good. But here, I have to play king g7. Wait, no, that's inaccurate. Queen h6 is the move. So if this, we block. I did not see that. I mean, queen f5. I completely missed rook f3. And here, I thought he was just going to take, which just looks like the most natural move. And here, I only have one move to draw, which is rook h1. I'm sorry, I don't know if I would have found that. That is an incredibly accurate move to find for being in such low time. Sorry, for taking no time about it. He's just playing these moves instantly. And then queen f6 makes sense, threatening mate. I play queen h6. Oh, I have to take with the queen. What? Well, of course, this hangs the rook, but I wasn't so concerned about that. I was concerned about something like this. Oh, but there's... Oh, I didn't see that. And if queen takes, I'm just okay somehow. So rook f8 is the big mistake. Huh. I mean, I'm just in such low time. It's so difficult. And here, my idea was, if my opponent goes grabbing pawns, I can try and mount some kind of perpetual. Because, like, for example, let's say he pushes c4. Like, worst case scenario, I can just endlessly check him, right? That was my plan. I missed queen e8, though. And the problem is, no matter where I move my king, queen e7 comes and I lose the rook, which is what he played. And this is just game over, so... Yeah, that endgame is completely losing because my pawns are just... Like, even if I don't lose a rook here, let's say I was to play a move like rook h to f4, just making sure my rooks are guarding each other, I can't do anything here because my rooks aren't participating in the game. They're just doing nothing. And white is up too many pawns, and these pawns will also probably fall. And the white king is very, very safe compared to my king. So there'll always be some kind of check to pick up a rook if I try to create too much counterplay. That was a really disappointing end to the game because it went quite well. And then my opponent just pulled out a series of super accurate moves. Which again, I don't want to accuse him of cheating or anything because I don't think he did. But it just always makes you feel weird when an account only joined 1 day ago. You know what I mean? It's very frustrating that chess.com is like this. Nothing to do with my opponent necessarily, but just that you always feel like you could have been cheated. And you never know. You never know. Again, I don't think my opponent did cheat, but it's always in the back of your mind. But the most important part about this is that I think I learned a good bit from this game. I hope you guys learned a good bit from this game. If you want to see my video on how to refute the Alien Gambit, check out the video up here. I put a lot of effort into that video. And if you want to see the previous episodes of the speedrun, check out the playlists down there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in one of those videos.